Good evening, folks. We're going to give this a spin. This is our spherical end grinder. We made it from a CMO 3D radius attachment. Motorized this spindle, little DC motor over here. ER16 collet chuck driven with a Yates 3M timing belt. That's a 3/16 roller bearing, steel. Customer wants to grind round ends on various small steel rounds, so we're going to deal with that. We've chosen this setup because you generally get a better finish if you grind with a removable wheel, and we're looking for a really nice finish. There'll be some polishing after, but this setup at the moment is for roughing these things in. We use the center finding attachment like you would normally for your radius grinding operations. And then we zeroed the DRO. One exception in this case, so we're going to go to 0. And then we're going to back away 93 thou, because that's the radius of that round bar we're grinding. And the reason we're doing that is when we come around this side, we're going to be outside on the outside of the tool, so you got to allow for that. Y-axis doesn't matter too much. You just come in till you get the grind you want. To feed, you just feed with the upper X-axis. When you're setting up one of our CMO 3Ds, there's a little snipe down here in the bottom. This is done so that you can find 0. So when this flat and this flat are lined up, then theoretically the tool's in the center. There's machining tolerances on these parts, so if it's very particular, for example in this case, when we came around this side it wasn't quite touching, so we just moved it over a little bit to find absolute 0. And then once you're set up to grind, you want to make sure that all your machine axes are all clamped up. Gibs on the tool spindle, there's one on the side for the X and this one's for the Y. This lever screw, those thumb screws. Generally speaking, not all tool spindles are the same height, but when the top of that is 0, then the wheel center is about 0. So that's just for basic setup stuff. So we'll start this up. So we're 93 thou off center this way, and we're gonna just see if this works. We're gonna come in a little bit till we touch, then we'll fire up the motor. Yeah, that looks pretty good. When you're grinding with this grinder, you really want to be a reasonable RPM, because if you don't, you'll have a swirl on the end of the tool, because this happens pretty fast. So you need a pretty good rate of spin if you're going to have a nice finish. So we're using a 220 grit. We're going to go to 320 grit next, and then there'll probably be some polishing after, but just to show you how this works. You want to make sure you keep your wheel nice and sharp with your dressing stick if you expect to have a good finish. This wheel has been trued up. So you just feed in until you're actually picking up the end of the tool. And then you're all done. Nice and easy on your finished pass. As you can see, we just touched on the end, so we'll just that's all there is to it.